So yeah, I found this nice shady little park area near Duck Creek, and it does have a a little loop that me and my doggy can do. And let's look at her. She's like, come on, let's go, please, 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 please. So we're gonna go for a walk. We gonna go for a walk for sure. Um, yeah, the air conditioning felt pretty good. It's almost 6 o'clock. We got some cloud covering. I definitely think that a walk will do us some good, right? And see if the trees got some energy to transmit to us. I think we're like in the third day of the new moon in Aquarius, and it feels good. And Saturn is in retrograde, taking numbers, right? We have a lot of people who should check their chart because they're probably going through their Saturn return, right? Your Saturn return, depending on the placements, it could last like 3 degrees one way and 3 degrees the other way, 6 degrees in the celestial sky. Okay? Somebody made a home out of this box truck. Okay? So, yeah. And Saturn moves pretty slow, right? And if you have a Saturn in return, like a Saturn in retrograde, then instead of the usual transit where it's just passing through, you get a review. Yeah. And depending on the placement, right? I can tell you my Saturn returns were very intense. My Saturn returns was very intense because my Saturn not only is my Saturn oh, looky. Not only was my Saturn return how beautiful is that? Not only was my Saturn return in retrograde, extending that transit, right? But my Saturn was also in the house of Capricorn, on my MC, trining with my AC, and conjuncting Jupiter. It was intense, right? And oh my God, you know, that placement was, come here, hey, come here, come here. Come on, you're so beautiful. Look at you, look at you. You like the feather? Come here. So, any other astrologist who understands what that means, that's like Saturn times 10 on my Saturn return. That's why it made me very conscious of, well, I'm very sensitive to energies anyway, but it made me very conscious of what, you know, a Saturn return is. Right? And a lot of people will say, you know, Saturn is the planet of restriction. Saturn is the planet of karma, you know. And that could be true. That could be true. But it doesn't have to be. Just depends on how you live your life. Come on. So, this is nice. It feels like it's about 90 degrees in the shade. Come on. I wonder if she'll run to catch up. So yeah. And this could be, you know, and part of the reason why I'm saying this is because Saturn is in retrograde. Right? Like, Keanu Reeves. I was looking at his chart the other day, and I was like, oh my God, you know, Keanu Reeves is, you know, in his Saturn return, you know, and a lot of other people will have this placement also, right? And of course, you know, depending on how he's lived his life, you know, such as his intentions, you know, known and unknown, right? Because he has a whole trine in the water element. His strongest water element is Cancer. He has a stellium there. And but he has planetary placements in Scorpio, and he also has planet placement in Pisces. Right? So, and yeah, that's why he has, you know, a lot of like emotional power. You know, we don't see emotional power. You know, and even though we don't really see, you know, intellectual power, usually intellectual power, you know, works through the other elements in order to be realized. You know, unless you have telekinesis or you have the ability to do telepathy, then yeah, intellectual power can definitely be used. In the spiritual community, it kind of brings to mind, like, how we how we're all different, in our spiritual gifts. It's kind of like being a mutation, right? And some of the mutations, back in the day, they wasn't saying mutations. They called them like the Fantastic Four or the Hulk or, something like that, right? But then they had came out with a whole movie. I think it was called the Mutables or something like that, where they had Wolverine and Storm and yeah. So, and and even in the scientific community, they'll talk about, how Einstein, was a genius, but, had a problem tying his shoes, stuff like that, But during the age of Aquarius, and the veil is being lifted and people are realizing, that they can take charge of their own spirituality, you still have to, be aware, that there are universal laws. There are universal laws. And the universal laws are similar, to, a man-made law, right? But they're not the same. Okay? They may have the same type of reasoning as, some of the reasons why, man will create a law. And then we're also going through a period of time where Jupiter is traversing through Gemini, right? And Gemini is not just communication, it's also intelligence, it's the nervous system, it's the lungs, it's air. Okay? Okay. So there's a lot of powerful energies going on at this time. And a lot of times when you understand the energies or open your mind when somebody tells you what these energies are, it could take away some of the fear, right? Kind of like, what I was talking about in one of my earlier videos. I could watch Blair Witch, over and over and I still don't get the fear. Like, what is everybody so afraid of? You know, this is some BS, you know, this is a waste of time, you know. How in the hell, you know, you gonna take a picture of some trees in the dark and act like, you know, that's scary. Alright? Come on. This way. Snoopy! Snoopy! Hey! Honorable mention to whoever put this fountain here in this park. I know it's a new install. The water is cut off though. But I did not forget to bring my doggy some water. I did not. So I did feel like, you know, it could benefit some people that I put out a video kind of explaining some major energetic happenings. Yeah? Some energetic happenings. So what you think, baby? What you think? Nice out here? There's our car. Over here. Come on. Hey. Come on. This way. Snoopy. Come on. Oh, you want some water? Good deal, huh? I know, huh? I love you. Come on. No? Come on. Get in. Get in. Get in. Now put this one up. There you go. See? Technique, baby. All you need is technique, because you got the strength. Woo! It's still hot out there. It's 95 degrees. But we didn't let that stop us. We did our walk anyway. You know, we just took our time. We took our time. Breathed in some of that fresh oxygen from the trees. Yes, yes we did. Now, I'm kind of ready to go home. And, what have you got a Dee-Dee's around here? But I would like to get my dog a mat that she could sleep on. I guess I could give her a yoga mat, but she ends up like tripping out when it gets warm. She starts scratching it up and stuff. So, yeah. Gotta find some shady places to walk. I did send out Carl Jung's psychological definition of the narcissist and empath relationship. You know, now you kind of have to see where you fall in that respect, right? Because you can be an empath and be a healthy empath, okay? But when you come across a narcissist, and a narcissist, you know, doesn't have healthy boundaries, and they're very manipulative, so they could basically, you know, drag an empath until the empath, you know, has had enough. Right? Now, an empath, because they're very sensitive, you know, to energy, you know, an empath is a person that, you know, basically, you know, live their life, you know, picking up on the energies of other people in survivor mode, right? They're in survival mode. And so they can do things, you know, that helps other people while at the same time damaging themselves unbeknownst to them. Because, of course, you know, the goal for an empath should be to move beyond just being empathetic, right? You want to move into compassion, but you don't want to be an enabler, right? So it's like a balancing act of walking on a thin line. And the same can happen in regards to like the narcissist. The narcissist, they're also doing a balanced act, but you know, their default is dark, and their lighter side is more of a performance, because they haven't learned to integrate the two, right? Once you learn to integrate the two, and I don't mean deny one or the other, right? You know, because, you know, you're going to cause yourself, you know, even more trauma by denying yourself who you are. You know, all you really have to do is work through, you know, what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, and acknowledge that to yourself, right? This is where the mental capacity comes in as the CEO, right? This is one of the reasons that further adds to my case that yes, your feelings are important, Your feelings are valid, but that doesn't mean that your feelings are justified, right? And everybody would say, they shouldn't live in a world of judgment. Well, that's not ours to say. It's just not, right? When we live in a world of non-judgment, then everybody that they're around, becomes an enabler. And then, nobody wants to forever be casted into a situation, that they're always being dumped on. They're always, having to clean up somebody's shit. Nobody wants that kind of position indefinitely. And thank God, nothing remains the same. Nothing remains the same. That's a guarantee that is the only constant is that nothing stays the same and everything changes. Wow, that's my first time seeing an electrical 150 truck. A Ford 150 truck. Electrical Ford 150 truck out there. They look pretty good. Like a big Tonka toy truck. Yeah. Oh, there it is. I was wondering what happened to my doggy poop bags. It flew off of my crossover bag and landed in my yard. Thank God it didn't go too far. Now, back home. So, let's just keep it real, right? An empath is a sensitive, compassionate person that is attuned to light. And the narcissist is also attuned, but because of their pain, their dysfunction, their dark side, they're attuned to negativity, right? And that's why when these two get together, right, they both perform, right? And the performance is transactional, right? They're giving the empath glimpses of darkness, and then the empath is giving the narcissist glimpses into the light. Because there are people out there that, had a cloud over their head, for the majority of their life. And therefore, every day to them just looks like a rainy day, of storms, and turbulences, maybe hurricanes. And then, they look upon somebody else that sees things in a positive way, and this positivity in their minds is not realistic, right? And then it rubs them so wrong that they're like, well, I'll show you just how, uh, bad, mean the world can be, right? And, you know, and empaths have different degrees of their empathetic nature, right? Some don't, some have, it's a percentage. Some have a lot. And what I mean by that is um, some people's empathetic nature can be based off of maybe having an easy life, right? And therefore, when their life doesn't become easy, then they slowly, their light starts to dim out. Whereas other people, their life can be effed up and tumultuous, but yet they're still optimistic, they're still positive, they still don't feel the need for revenge. They put that in God's hands. It's not like they feel like people won't get, the consequences of their actions. No, it's just something that they don't choose to weaponize, right? They don't test God.